Hello, everybody. It is Star Raptor here, and I'm joined by my guests Milton and Ben to talk The Mandalorian Season 2, Chapter 10. This is The Passenger. So, this is that adventure that you would expect where we have the Mandalorian kind of like in a quest in a video game. He has to go take a passenger from one location to another. And of course, it's very eventful. We have the Razor Crest taking incredible damage. We have giant ice spiders, and we have Baby Yoda eating eggs along the way. So I'm going to throw it to Milton. First thoughts, initial impressions. What were your thoughts on this episode?
Honestly, this wasn't my favorite episode. I'll be honest with you. I will say, I'm sure we'll get into it later. I felt the episode was very bizarre and weird in the middle parts of the episode. The first 5 minutes when he's getting off Tatooine, awesome. The middle of the episode, just the pacing threw me off. Didn't really like the humor. The last 15 minutes, really enjoyed the episode. But other than that, it wasn't my favorite.
Yep.
Yeah, it was definitely something that I mean, I had very, very high hopes coming off that season premiere, and it seems like we lost a lot of the momentum. Did you feel the same way about that one, Ben?
Yep. I felt like the last episode, it was like all this big build up,
Mhm.
etc. And then we get to this one, like Milton said, the beginning of it was pretty good. The middle was shaky. The last 15 minutes better. Overall, it was a fine episode, but again, like you both said, it wasn't my favorite episode of The Mandalorian by far. And yeah, we'll get into that more. And like you said, I felt like, it was like go 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 in the first one, and then boom, like I
Yeah.
feel like we almost hit like a brick wall head on and just dead stop.
Pretty much. I have to echo those words, and I'm sure Chris will give your opinion, but it was just like they could have given us something a little bit more. And again, I don't want to be that fan. I don't want to be that fan, but it's like, uh, really, you could have put this maybe in episode 4. We're coming off a hot episode. Like, continue that. But
Yeah, I mean, what we got going on here is an episode that was the complete opposite feelings I had with the first episode. That first episode, I think I said it here or some other places on the internet, is that I got the same feeling from watching The Force Awakens, Rogue One, like those awesome like Star Wars high moments as I call them, where you're just like on cloud nine. You want to talk about what happened with everybody you know that even vaguely likes Star Wars. Like you want to just talk about it and scream from the rooftops like, "Oh my gosh, Boba Fett is alive! This is incredible! There's great dragons from Knights of the Republic that are back in canon. Like this is some seriously awesome, powerful Western Star Wars stuff mixed with like dragons. Like this is pinnacle Star Wars." And then we go to this episode, and you're thinking like, "Oh, we're on Tatooine. Like, oh,
mhm.
Mando's in trouble. Boba Fett's gonna pop up, and he's gonna save him from these three goons." Nope. Oh, well, we got somebody that's gonna meet him in this hangar bay to give him information. That's got to be Boba Fett, right? Nope. It's just like many times, or like
Yeah.
I feel like, and that's kind of a criticism on my own self for being so hyped up about Boba Fett that I expected that to happen, but in reality, I feel like they've just like really slowed down on the brakes, and for me personally, I feel like this was an episode that we had seen already. This is an episode 2 of season 1 where it's almost the same thing happened, where it's like, okay, the first 5 minutes he's fighting these Trandoshans like we've seen in this episode. Then the rest of the episode, he finds out the Razor Crest gets damaged and he's got to go fix it up essentially and get the heck off the planet. Not only that, it's like, cool, we see the spiders that, Ralph McQuarrie designed, but we are already seeing almost the same episode with Star Wars Rebels. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I wish they could have just like at least threw in another creature design where it wouldn't have
Yeah.
felt so repetitive.
No, Chris, 100%. And that's the first thought that went to my mind because I was very unsure about as we progressed. I was like, man, I felt like I've seen this before, and I'm like, okay. And I think you're right. Episode 2 of last season was pretty much a replica of this episode. It's just they're in a different element. Um, I honestly, I have a couple criticisms. The one criticism for me was the humor with the lady. With the She's one who always likes Baby Yoda, and she was trying to like, hey Mando, like if you stake him in 500, then I'll tell you where you can find another Mandalorian. Like her humor was not a thing for me this episode. I was like, okay, let's move on from her. Like she's good in bits and pieces, not in a full scene. Like I just kind of felt it was very childish humor, and I'm like, okay, like I don't like this.
Yeah. Do you know what the character's name is, Ben? I think it's like Mila Pella or Pila or
Yeah,
I
I
No,
don't.
forget
it's
her name off the top of my head. I
yeah,
forget her
it's like
name.
Nina Pila or Pella or something along those lines. I know it's Amy Sedaris, but I don't know. Like you both said, I wasn't a big fan of just like you said. It almost I've heard other people talk about it. It's almost felt those some of her bits and pieces almost feel like it's the kind of like the bad side of the prequels.
Mhm.
Like the forced just
Yeah.
kind of humor. And I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan. I mean, that was like you said, Milton. That was one of my criticisms of this episode as well. And I don't know. I think the pacing was really off in this episode, personally.
I mean,
Agreed.
I don't. I don't know if I completely agree with that. Actually, the pacing. I mean, I think the directing from Peyton Reed was pretty good. I mean, this is a film director. He's done both Ant-Man movies, and
Mhm.
I think it
Wait,
blew
wait, wait,
my
wait.
mind.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. Peyton Reed was the director for this episode.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, now that makes so much sense now. Okay, that makes so much sense again because I like the Ant-Man movies, and Chris, I'll let you continue. I like both the Ant-Man films, but some of the humor, especially in episode or movie number 2, I was like, all right, this really isn't funny. And like now I'm getting that with this episode now, if Peyton Reed did it, so that lines up. Continue, Chris.
Well, the second, I can't believe I didn't pick this up on my first watch. I watched the episode twice.
Yeah,
There's a giant ant in the Mos Eisley cantina,
yeah,
and
I
his
didn't even
name is
think about it.
Dr.
Like, okay,
Mandible.
yeah,
Yep.
And then there's a bunch of arachnoids running around on the planet. Like they're basically insect. Obviously they're insects. So it's like you get the guy that does the ant stuff to do this episode. Why not? He's already done it like twice now, so he's experienced. He's a seasoned veteran. But I think from like the directing standpoint and whatnot, like the episode was fine. Like we're really gonna beat this episode down, unfortunately, I guess, because
Yeah.
nobody seems to
right.
really like it a whole lot.
And,
Um,
and, you make a good point though, because like listen, it's not the episode wasn't god awful. It wasn't like that. I want people to know that's watching. We're not trying to shit on this episode, say it's bad. It's just I didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't to my liking. I think the pacing for me threw me off because with the unfunny joke and humors, I was like, okay. But again, whenever Mando and Baby Yoda and I forget the creature's name when they're crashed on the planet, when they're at the hot tub, that's where it picked up for me, and I was like, oh,
oh,
okay, like there's a threat, because at that point I still wasn't sure until I kind of got that Aliens vibe,
yeah.
Aliens 1 and 2, and I was like, okay, things about to hit the fan. But no, this episode wasn't terrible. So please, whoever's watching this, we're not going to beat it to hell. It's just the fact that it just wasn't to my liking, and it just was off as a Mandalorian episode.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think with all of our, early criticisms that we've stated, I think there's some of the better parts though of this episode. I think it really laid some of the potential story foundation for the series, this season and the series going forward, because, I'm sure both of you picked up on it, like when Dave Filoni and the other pilot popped in.
Mhm.
They mentioned, these are trying times right now in the state of the galaxy. So, like, why are they trying times? It's only, 5 or 6
Huh.
years after they defeated the Empire. Like, because that's one of the lines that they say toward the end is, these are trying times. So that's kind of a potential hint to show maybe we might get more of like the state of the New Republic addressed throughout the series potentially. Um, and then I think one of the other better things, of course, we'll get into it, is I really think this episode was good at mirroring or showing the Mandalorian, excuse me, showing the Mandalorian, you know, a really mirror-like relationship, like with him and the child compared to the Frog Lady and her
Mm-hmm.
kids. So like he was getting to see someone in action, like parenting.
Yes.
So I think that was a really good teaching moment for Din in this one.
That was definitely the redeeming quality for the episode as I went back and rewatched it, because I did get into a couple discussions on Twitter, as I usually do with these episodes. Somebody's like,
Yep.
well, the episode was a complete waste. And I rewatched it. I'm like, And I'm thinking in my head, like, he hasn't really come across another parent in that situation in season one at all, right? So
Mhm.
now people were telling him throughout season one, like, you have a baby, you got to take care of it. And he's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, you're just telling me what to do. Like, screw you, basically. And in this, he actually sees the proof. He actually sees this frog lady taking care of her offspring and how they're so precious. And it's like, oh, wait. But then here's another thing that also negates that. Then you have the running joke throughout the episode of Baby Yoda like constantly eating these eggs. It's like, okay, like relax, like you eat one, that's funny, but like you keep eating them, and she literally says the importance of these eggs are like they're the last of her kind. It's like
Yeah.
Baby Yoda's just eating is like, dude, this is like negating the point of like how precious these things are.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Like that's one thing I noticed because I was like, wait a minute, if they're so important, how come she's not freaking out? Now does she know that he ate some? I'm assuming that she has an idea, but she's not freaking out. Yoda's or Baby Yoda's not really taking much of a interest of trying to preserve it. Now, yes, he's only a child. I get it, but yeah, I was
Yep.
like, okay, I wasn't really feeling that because I wasn't really consistent with what the storyline would potentially be with the writing, I guess, of the Mandalorian series, but again, that's a minor criticism for me. But overall, though, I will say, what I really liked about this episode was how it was shot. It was a beautiful
Hmm.
shot episode. Like, I mean,
Definitely.
very, very cinematic. Again, Peyton Reed, a film director. I'm very impressed with the budget they do with the space interactions.
Oh yeah.
Like, it looks very much like, oh, this is a film. This could be in a Star Wars movie. Because you've seen the low budget space films and shows back in like the day, but now it's like, man, this is gorgeous stuff. So it was shot beautifully.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because I want to jump into this real fast. It's like the first main topic, and I'll throw it to Ben. Um, Basically, I had a good idea for what this series was going to be, and it seems like in season two, it kind of threw me for a ringer. Where there was a couple episodes in the formula for season one of The Mandalorian where they're very episodic, right? The middle part of the season, you had like episodes. What was it, episodes like 4, 5, and 6 were very much almost like standalone episodes, but they eventually factored in later on in the story. I thought that could have been just like something for season one that they did just to, like world build, but it seems like they're continuing it on in season two of The Mandalorian with
Yep.
this episode. Like you could pretty much cut this episode out and could have just told somebody, oh yeah, episode two, all that happened was his ship got damaged and the New Republic showed up. Like yeah, that's all you really needed in that episode. So what do you say to that, Ben? Like, do you
Well, I
like the kind of
think
formula with the episodic stuff mixed in with the overarching plot? Would you rather have more of like a story structured where like incredibly impactful things happen every episode, or?
I like the just kind of the solo episode feel to the show, but I think one actually point we missed in our initial comments and stuff, and I've seen actually quite a bit of people on YouTube missing this as well. So I think this episode is probably going to have the most important potential plot device of the entire series. And here's why. Because, okay, so beginning the episode, you have the Mandalorian basically get jumped in the desert, and, he has to walk back to Mos Eisley. So the thing about it is how Boba Fett's been in the desert. Why hasn't he left? Has he not left because he hasn't had transportation? Now he has a potential crashed speeder bike to fix to get out of the desert, and that could be a potential
Huh.
plot device to get Boba Fett into the show. Because, like say if he's living with the Tuscans, they might not have let him leave.
Mhm.
Huh.
So I think that's a big potential plot device a lot of people have maybe looked over as that could be the the way Boba Fett gets out of the desert. That's what I really think is going to come out of this episode.
I mean, yeah, that's a valid point, but stay with me here for a second because
Yep.
it's been about 5 years since Return of the Jedi, approximately. Do
Yeah.
you think that it's taken him 5 years to find somebody with a super? I don't know if he's like that far off. I mean, I've heard rumors like maybe the Sand People were one of the people that helped free him, and he was so gracious by them like saving him, that he got like a second life and he decided to change his ways and decide to like adopt the ways of the Sand People. What do you have to say about that, Milton?
God, I'm gonna go left field on you here, and I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I think we might get a Ryan Johnson, Luke Skywalker when it comes to Boba Fett, because you're right, it's been 5 years. So why hasn't he left? Why hasn't he like try to get away from Mos Eisley or get off of Tatooine? Maybe he's just done with being a bounty hunter. Maybe he's just done and wants to be at peace, you know. And again, as much as I do not like the Last Jedi, and I didn't like how they disrespected Luke, I can see them saying, you know what, let's try to use this plot point with Luke and try to make it a little more tighter with Boba Fett and tell a more in depth story of why he didn't want to leave. So
Yeah.
we could get that, we can get that potentially, you know, because again, like, I'm sorry if I'm in the desert for 5 years after potentially getting eaten by the Sarlacc pit, I'm going to try to exact my revenge or at least get off this godforsaken planet, you know. So, but why hasn't he done that? Something's keeping him there,
Yeah,
you know. And
that's very true. I didn't think about it from that angle.
yeah, like
I and yeah.
something is pulling him to say, hey, I have to be here. Either he has to resolve something, or he just wants to, hey, I don't want to be the myth of Boba Fett anymore. Because really, to us as non-Star Wars characters who are fans, we were like, okay, this mythical character of Boba Fett, he's like a god to us. Maybe he's viewed like that in the world of Star Wars, of like this Boba Fett guy. He was killed by the Sarlacc, and then there's no more pressure for him. Like, he can just live his life. Maybe
Yeah.
he's got issues of his father, you know, when he died when he was a kid. I mean, you just don't know. So something, I think, is keeping him from re-entering the world again.
Yeah, so I mean, think about this. Dave Filoni already worked with Boba Fett quite a bit under the tutelage
Hmm.
of George Lucas through the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
So I would love to see like a full circle, like, Boba Fett
absolutely.
as like a young kid, and now we're seeing the old version of Boba Fett really tying into like some really greater depth to the character because whatever you think about Boba Fett, I mean, you look at him through like a vacuum or whatever as like a person on the outside that doesn't really have any connection. It's just like, oh yeah, he's just like a dude in armor, whatever. Like he
Yeah,
doesn't really do much at all in the original trilogy. It's through people's imaginations, through the legends stuff that
Yep.
really built up the character. So I think there's so much potential that they could really do for this character to make him better than he's ever been before. Because based on his, like you said, in the Star Wars universe, a lot of people probably know of his name. I was listening to the
hmm,
Force Center podcast earlier today, and they were talking about, hey, like this guy's probably wanted by the New Republic. Like we've seen what happened with Mando. Like they were
Oh
like going
yeah.
after him. Like he's
that's a good
probably
point too.
wanted. Like everybody connected to the Empire is being hunted down. So maybe he's just like, it's not worth it. Maybe hiding on Tatooine is the best place to just hide out because
Hmm.
they're too hot on my trail still.
Oh yeah. I think that's a potential possibility. Like all of that are all of those are very very good points. And then also, Chris, just to like get back to your original question, I do think though, just thinking about it, if you bring someone in cold into this show, I don't. This is definitely not the episode you say, "Hey, watch The Mandalorian and get introduced to it." So like, I think that's kind of like a little litmus test too. Is this an episode you would introduce somebody to the show with? And I don't think it. I don't think
No,
it is at
I
all.
I mean, it depends on what kind of person it is, I guess. Because
Yeah.
like if a person knows
yeah,
what Star Wars is on a surface level, they're like, oh yeah, you got blasters, you got creatures, you got people running around, you got goons. Like this
Yep.
could be a fun episode to just show somebody because it's a shorter episode too. It's like around 40 something minutes long, I'm guessing, or just
yeah.
Yep.
under 40 minutes, and I don't know. I mean, I feel like he could show almost any episode of The Mandalorian and people will love it, which is why it has such broad appeal for anybody. Because as much as we're kind of saying the negative stuff right now about the episode, you compare it to everything else on TV, and it still is better than most stuff on TV. I'm just solely basing it on
Absolutely.
the other Mandalorian episodes that we have seen before, and I just felt a little bit disappointed.
Yeah. No, I
Yep.
agree. And just to echo what you said, you know, I put this up against any TV probably out right now on cable or whatever streaming services. The Mandalorian is well written consistently. I felt the writing in this episode was a little different. Was just
Yeah.
different. It felt out of character. And again, it's not a negative because sometimes we need to have our system shocked a little bit just to get to the next phase of the story arc. And like I said, and just to build off what you said, Ben, about another plot device potentially, I think the Rebel Alliance or the New Republic, that's going to play a huge factor too.
Yeah.
Because I think after he talked about, because remember, they were specific to list all the things he was wanted for or issues that he had all going on, but also list, hey, you did this, you helped this guy get free or whatever he did. So they know about his accomplishments. I think that the New Republic will, whether it's later this season or next season, will say, hey, we need to reach out to this guy because we might need him for something important.
Yeah, and that's
So,
great. I do want to shift the conversation to more of the New Republic. That because this is the first time we're seeing like the Rebel Alliance like really in full power as the New Republic. Every other Star Wars story, it's usually the First Order is in power. The Separatists have a lot of power. Obviously the Empire having a lot of power. So the New Republic, we get this different view where they're pretty fair. I mean, they're like saying the good things and the bad things, and they're giving him a break. Whereas if it was the Empire, they would have just like shot him. They wouldn't
yeah,
even have
Yeah.
cared. Like they didn't fire any blasts in the chase. They were just trying to see what he was up to for the most part. So seeing more of the New Republic, what did you have to feel about that, Ben?
I think it was really good. I mean, it's always cool like seeing like little cameos from Dave Filoni as the pilot, as Trapper Wolf is his name,
Yep.
and then the other pilot. Apparently, I found out he actually is a big star on a hit like Canadian show. Actually, he's like one of the main characters, and that's why a lot of people were really excited as well. So I thought those are really cool. But in terms of the New Republic, like Milton was saying, I think there's a chance whether it be this season or next, we're definitely going to get more of the state of the New Republic. And like I mentioned earlier, when the pilot says, the trying times we're in, like, what's that mean? Are they still? Because I guess if you think about it, after the Battle of Endor, it was still such a small little ragtag group of rebels that beat the Empire. So like, they probably are still trying to get their numbers around to, sweep out the remaining Imperials that are in the galaxy. So I think that's a potential point. And then also you just have the whole potential of, like you both were saying, could the New Republic reach out to Din to potentially employ him or have him help on some mission or this or that, just because, I think there's a chance. Okay, so, like you were saying, Milton, the pilots read off these really in detailed things about him.
Yeah.
So I think there's a chance we're gonna get kind of a Rogue One-y type scene where I think Din might make an appearance in front of like New Republic people at some point, like when what's her name, Felicity Jones.
Jen
Jyn
Erso.
Erso.
Yeah, Jen. When she's getting when the rebel officers reading all of her things that she's done, this and that. I think there's a chance we could have almost a similar type scene of Din meeting, New Republic officers like in front of
Mon Mothma.
Yeah, Mon Mothma. I think
dude, I'd lose my mind. I ain't gonna lie.
I think there's a decent chance we get Mon Mothma at some point in this series.
Are you sure?
Pardon me?
Well, according to the here we go again with the nerd stuff, right? According to Aftermath, I think she is being hospitalized at the moment or something. She could be even dead. Because didn't they say in Aftermath she was like in a hospital or something like that?
She was injured.
She was not in good shape at all, from what I remember.
Oh.
Or wait, no, wait, was that in Bloodline? Now I'm getting it confused.
Bloodline, that's whenever they had like the bombing or something. Bloodline, right?
Bloodline was where the bombing was, the napkin bombing.
Yeah.
I might be wrong on this one then.
But I mean, look. But here's the thing: it's still a possibility to bring her in the show.
Yeah.
Because the actress who played her in Rogue One was in Revenge of the Sith. But then they can age her up with technology.
They can age her up like 20 years somehow.
Yes, I'm saying like all you gotta do is age her up, and she looked great in Return of the Jedi. So like you can still age her up to where she looks a little bit older than what she was, and she should be fine. Like, you're right, Ben. If we get some type of callback to some original trilogy characters within the New Republic, God Almighty, I would lose my mind.
I know, right?
To me, it's nostalgia, and I know it can't be warranted sometimes, but and it can be. And I think in a sense, it'd be nice just to see where that's at. I think that's something that's important. Like I feel like as Star Wars fans, even though we're talking about the Mandalorian, we haven't gotten enough of what the New Republic looks like in this new Star Wars. Yes, we get them in books, but a visual medium, that's what I think fans need to see. You know, I would love to see Coruscant again, and I would love to see where the New Republic shifted, because I know they never stayed at Coruscant anymore. They always shifted different
They went
planets from
to,
the lore.
I believe they are at Chandrilla, and then
Sandra,
they might
yes,
have
yes.
Yeah.
So
gone.
I,
Yeah.
I I would love to see that. I would love to see Cato 9 Mordia, or just
Oh
some.
yeah.
Again, I want to see this stuff again. I want to see Naboo potentially again. Like, show what the New Republic looks like with some peace, because we do kind of miss that. I think, and again, this is just as a Star Wars fan speaking for myself. I do kind of get the fatigue of so worn, torn galaxy. That's why I
Yeah.
love the prequel so much, because we did see, at least for 2 episodes, a peace. Even though there was plotting going on with scheming, there was still peace in the galaxy, and that was nice to see for a change. Again, I would like to get back to what the peace looks like and still have that ragtag dirtiness about the post Empire.
Yeah, like the closest thing we've seen to peace in Star Wars is like the first half of season 1 of Star Wars Resistance, where
Yeah,
the
pretty
First Order
much.
wasn't really in power yet, and the New Republic was around, but they weren't doing a whole lot there either. So it's just like
Yeah,
I don't know what happened. They didn't set them in the best standing right from the get go, and I guess they just never really got a good foothold. Never really
right.
appreciated the average citizen enough to like get them to feel confident in their governorship, because the first episode or the first couple episodes, Mando's talking to Grief Karga, the cantina there on Navarro, and he's like just like joking about the New Republic, like oh yeah, tell them about it, like oh yeah, of course they're gonna do anything about it, like they're
Right.
gonna
Yeah.
just do
They're
nothing.
they're a joke pretty much from my impressions. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, again, I just it'd be nice just to see that to flesh it out more, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a show that is what we think of it as, just like a show about the underworld, I
Hmm.
don't know if they're gonna go to that way. Maybe they'll come out with a spin-off series where it's gonna be like, oh, here is like a whole agent that is involved with the New Republic or something like that.
Right.
I would
Right.
love to see that. I mean, we're
Well,
gonna get a lot of stuff with the Cassian Andor show, of course,
yeah.
which we know we got a lot of returning actors coming in for that.
But Chris, do you think? And I'm gonna throw this at both you, Ben and Chris. But do you think this will be an opportunity, because this is supposed to be a more grounded show about the underground of Star Wars? Do you think that because we know Dave Filoni, he's a disciple of George Lucas, do you think that we'll get to see 1313 level or something to that extent? Because that Mando may have to go there for some particular reason.
Oh
Like,
man.
you know what I mean?
I
Like,
would love to see it, because
I
and
think
we're gonna keep bringing it up, especially since they opened the doors to it in the last episode with the Aftermath books. But that's the last time I think we've seen or heard about Coruscant, was like Masameda was like holed up in the Imperial
yeah, it's all
Palace,
up there. Yeah,
and he was being like bombarded by all these rebels. And like from what
right,
I remember reading is like that whole city was like falling apart. And actually in the other script that Colin Trevorrow wrote for Rise of Skywalker, The Duel of the Fates, they
mhm,
had a big thing with Coruscant where it was like super different than what we see it in the prequel. So
yes,
yeah, I would love to see like, because exactly like the seat of the Republic was on Coruscant for years. I know it's Legends, but even in Star Wars: The Old Republic, like 4,000 years before, you go to Coruscant, it looks very much the same. So I want to see like a rundown Coruscant. Like, why isn't the seat of the New Republic there? Why did they move off of there? Why isn't anybody even talking about Coruscant? Like, something must have happened where it's like this seat of thieves. This
yeah,
place where just like people go and just they're not good people.
absolutely,
Oh yeah, I think there's a potential chance of that. But again, maybe the only thing about it is potentially how will we get there is, I guess, the real question. Like, is it maybe some Imperials, like you were saying, maybe more Imperials were holding out there, or maybe trying to rebuild things there, etc. There's a potential chance for that.
right,
So I don't know. It matters really how we get there, I guess, because right now we're on the outer rim. So
mhm,
how do we get to Coruscant, I guess.
right,
But I think there's a chance we go there. But I feel like that would be more maybe season 3 or 4, potentially, than maybe this season, because this season right now you know, and I guess a lot of it really all falls back on the Mandalorian's quest. It will coincide with his quest to find other Mandalorians and or other Jedi. That's the big overarching thing because I mean, I guess that's another point as well to just throw in there. So, like, we talked about maybe this episode potentially being some people thought it was a throwaway, things like that. But, if you think about it, like, in like a hero's journey, like, they go on a quest, they have their mission and they have, you know, the, uh, the quests, all these little quests are, what makes up like the hero's journey, the adventure
Mm-hmm.
for the hero. So like, I think that's something as well. Us as Star Wars fans need to remember, like, sure, we may not have potentially seen this as the most entertaining episode, but like this type of a quest, these type of little events that happen, are key to Din's journey as well as the child's journey of potentially getting him back to uh to more force users. And I think it'll continue to play into like the next episode too, with potentially another Mandalorian coming into the picture and that sort of thing. And even like with the whole potential 1313 thing, like we talked about, maybe he could go to an underground, like maybe that's where more Mandalorians could be hiding out. Like,
Yeah, the covert.
Could be.
She said there's many coverts.
yep, I think there's definitely a chance of that as well.
I mean, Coruscant is a great place to hide. This humongous citywide plant, like it's crazy how big that place is. And 1313, you always had scum hiding out there in the Clone Wars, and that was going to be the Boba Fett origin story. If you remember the game 1313, that came out eventually, that you were actually going to be playing as Boba Fett down there on the levels, getting all your gear. So could be talking about like throwaway episodes. I mean, we got to kind of mention this a little bit because, everybody mentions the word filler, right, on the internet.
Yep.
Oh, if as soon as they don't like the episode, it's filler episode. I hate
Yep.
using that term because it seems like
Yeah.
it's just kind of like a lazy excuse to just say that you didn't like the episode, but you're not really taking the time to even explain why you don't like the episode before you're just criticizing it. So, I mean, what's your thought on episodes like these? We kind of went over it. Like, I think that's a good explanation, Ben, is like, it's kind of like the hero's journey. Like you're going to have these adventures, which are just going to, over time, they're going to add to the overall character. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the formula for the show, whether you like it or whether you don't like it.
Right.
It's just like, and that's maybe kind of what made the first season so good too, is like you have these episodes which flesh a little bit of the story out, not much, but you just get to see more interactions. Like I mean, I noticed in this episode, like Baby Yoda is like getting closer to Din Djarin. Like that one scene, he's like lying next to him, which is real cute. Like they're
Yep.
bonding more. Like he's speaking to him more. Like you could see it happening before your eyes, and you got to have an episode like this to really see those sorts of things. Something I thought was like, oh yeah, they needed a big Baby Yoda episode, especially after the last episode. They didn't really have him in there a lot,
Yeah.
so it makes sense. Like I don't know if like Disney's like, oh, the quota for this season is you have to have one Baby Yoda episode, so let's just throw it into the first part of the season just to get it over with.
Right. Yeah. No, Chris, I echo your sentiments about the whole filler thing. I don't like using that term. And here's the thing. There is no such thing as filler when it comes to this show. Only because I think, Ben, you probably pointed this out more than any of us during these reviews. Like, there's always a reason for something. Okay? Some plot point where we might think it's silly or unnecessary or maybe not as well written is going to be something that's going to be fulfilled later down the road. So to me, this episode wasn't filler because I guarantee you in like 4 or 5 episodes from now, what happened here is going to be reflected in another episode.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think when it comes to that, I feel like just to throw out there for some of our viewers and people rewatching this. So I think the term filler really, like you said, Chris, gets used almost lazily because you don't want to explain why. So it's easy just to go, hey, it's a filler. So I think the thing people need to remember about filler is, in my opinion anyways, is filler is an episode that contributes nothing whatsoever to the story, like totally unrelated to the story at all. Like, for example, say if this episode was literally not, it didn't even have the Mandalorian or any of our characters in it, and it was just Gungans hanging out on Naboo, and then we never go back to that ever again in the entire series, that's a filler. But even though this episode may be a little bit slower or this or that, like we were saying, things in this episode are going to pay off in this show. I mean, heck, it's going to pay off this coming episode because,
Oh yeah.
I mean, assumingly, anyways, with the frog lady, I mean, because I'm not sure if either of you caught this, but I saw some people post the screenshot from the trailer. You can see the frog lady with her
Oh,
husband
I've
and
watched
stuff.
it.
Yep, in the trailer, you can see them, so that's what we're getting to. And I think there's a potential chance that since the Mandalorian helped her out with her eggs and all of that, I think there's a potential chance, what if we get this frog lady ending up saving, the big badass bounty hunter Din Djarin? Like, what if she saves him in this coming episode, in some heroic, whatever heroic
She
moment?
already
And
saved them in this episode when she
well,
used her
but
blaster and
but
she shot the guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
but saves him even, something even
No,
more.
I think Ben, you're trying to say if she does something that we don't see
Like,
coming,
I
like
think,
I'm talking about over the top. Yeah,
what
like
if
that'd be pretty cool.
what if potentially, what if her species, what if Baby Yoda was drawn to her eggs because they had the Force? Like, what if she potentially has the Force and just uses it, sparingly or something?
Well, I'll be honest
Um,
with you. Uh, when he first went up to that tank, and I love
Yep.
that scene, by the way, and I gotta give a shout out to Ludwig Göransson because he just is crushing the soundtrack because they had new music that was like a very like, it was like, I don't know, it used like triangles and stuff like that with this music that was really like curiosity personified with Baby Yoda like approaching, and you see his face in the glass. It was just a really cool moment. But then he's using his hand, and I'm like, oh, he's using the Force. Like for a minute there, I was like, oh crap, he might actually be like speaking to these eggs or something like that. And then we
Yep.
find out later he was just eating them, but still.
Yeah, I legit, Chris. I honestly, in my heart, I thought Baby Yoda was going to do something extraordinary. I thought he was going to like pull like Star Killer, like he pulled that Death Star or the Star Destroyer out of the sky. I thought he was going to like pull that big spider somehow, like with the Force, to
Oh,
save everybody. I mean, in my head, I'm thinking that's my head canon, by the way. But like, I was thinking like, oh, Baby Yoda's going to do something crazy and show this potential crazy Force power. But then I was like, oh no, we're going. That's going to wait for be later down the road.
and it would
Yeah.
make sense too because we see
Yeah.
in season 2 or season 1 and season 2, episode 2, where he actually used the Force on the Mudhorn.
Yes.
So I could
Yeah.
see where you're drawing a comparison.
I was thinking like, okay, we're gonna get another moment like this. His power is gonna be more in like growth. But you know what though, we're gonna see that again. It just wasn't the right time, I guess, for this episode.
Oh yeah, I mean, even look at the 6th episode of season 1. I mean, Cara Dune gets, pretty flustered in that whole scene with Din, and Baby Yoda force chokes her to protect him. Like,
Yeah.
So I think there could be actually a potential moment in this series where maybe something bad's going to happen to Din and Baby Yoda. That's boom, we get the big moment with him. What if, just hear me out on this, episode 9, we saw Rey use Force lightning. What if Baby Yoda, all of a sudden we Force lightning just
Gosh.
shoots
If
out of
that
its hands?
happen- if that happens, like, yeah, like we got problems. 'Cause something's going down that we don't know about. Clearly, like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he's tapped into the Force. He's like a virgin in the Force. Like he
yeah,
showed the dark side power, so that they're not gonna just leave that there. Like he's gonna continue to do something bad eventually before he's taught
Yeah.
not to
What
do
if he
those
accidentally
powers.
hurts Din at some point? I mean,
Oh jeez.
it'd be a possibility.
I don't know. I mean, you have those potential chances. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how he plays into all of it. And then, like when we roll into like the next episode, even just to see, I think there's a potential, like you both said, this was kind of our Baby Yoda episode, I think, for the season, maybe for the quota for Disney. Because I think with the implications for this coming episode, let's just say if it is the next planet with the frog lady and
Mm-hmm.
all that on the water planet, and we're definitely getting the next Mandalorian. I mean, that's what we were aiming for this episode, and we had the whole situation with all the spiders. But so I think there's a chance we're going to get very little Baby Yoda in this next episode because it's going to be focused on the Mandalorian, the next Mandalorian we run into, and whoever that might be, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, I watched the trailer again just for curiosity's sake because last season the trailer actually had stuff from like the end of the season. Like literally the last episode was shown in that trailer with like Din like hanging on to the TIE fighter of Moff Gideon flying. Like that was like the last scene of the damn show they showed out in the first trailer. But I looked at this trailer and it's funny enough, they're almost showed every shot in the trailer already, and it's only been 2 episodes. The only shots they haven't shown are really the water plant, which I assume to be the next episode. So they are really keeping so much under wraps. Like other than that, it's like okay, like the TIE fighter thing where they're blowing up and the people running in the base with Kara, Grief, and Din. So they're really hiding a lot more, it seems, with the season. And I think yeah, he's gonna have to run into this Mandalorian, which I really really think it's gonna be Bo-Katan. I mean, I don't know who else you're gonna throw in there that's gonna be noticeable,
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about her because I know Katie Sackhoff is in this season,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah,
so
she is.
yeah, I didn't think that'd be the person we run into.
But then again,
No, go ahead, Chris.
But I was saying, then again on the trailer, you also see Sasha Banks in that water planet,
Yeah.
on the water
See,
planet.
This is my theory on that. I think the way the Mandalorians, quote unquote Mandalorians, are going to be spread out this season. I think first episode was Cobb Vanth / Boba Fett. That's a Mandalorian. Episode 2, we didn't get one. I think it's gonna be every couple episodes we get one sprinkled in, and I think this one is going to be potentially Sasha as Sabine, because I feel like when we get to the Bo-Katan level, I feel like that's so much of a higher up Mandalorian to get to, just because she was the last person to have the dark saber.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, I think anyways. So like she's the last person to have the dark saber. So I feel like she might potentially play in later in the season when Moff Gideon comes around because of the dark saber being involved. I feel like she could talk with Din and be like, hey,
oh yeah,
this and that happened. So I think I think it might be Sabine this episode, actually.
Wow. Yeah, that'd be something. Something.
And you know what though? And Ben, now because I'm a huge wrestling fan, Sasha Banks dyes her hair like different colors as a wrestling character.
Really?
So Chris, yeah, she's always like different, like blues, purples, and pinks and whatnot. So I could see her being Sabine because of how she does her hair. That just makes sense, like character wise. Again, I could be completely off, but it would make sense if they hired Sasha Banks to be that character with the natural look and the natural feel of it. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool, man. I didn't even think about that. That's an awesome observation.
That's a. Oh,
Go
I was just gonna throw in one more little tidbit. Sorry, Chris. I think one other thing with Sasha Banks though is there's a potential of her being a dark force user, just because I'm sure like Chris, when you rewatch the trailer, my thing about it is like sure it could be just total misdirect, but when he says enemy sorcerers, it flickers right to her. So like my thing about that is like it could be just like as a total misdirect, but could it be a dark force user like maybe hunting down force users or something? I don't know. Or it could be just Sabine. I'm not sure.
Well, as long as the Emperor's alive and in power, he's always looking for people. He's always looking for force users, and that'll never stop. Even if the Inquisitor program doesn't exist anymore, I'm sure there's, even if she's like an acolyte of the Beyond, that'd be sick if she was actually like not like an actual Sith or anything, but a little bit of force sensitivity, to be able to disappear in a trace like that. So could be. Just quickly wrapping things up, I do want to talk about the puppetry in this episode. There was really, really good uses of puppets and creatures. We've seen the big Gagorians from Rogue One, the big walking Wampa-looking guys, and Maz Eisley. There's one there. We mentioned Dr. Mandible, really, really cool puppet. Obviously, Frog Lady, really cool there. And, of course, Baby Yoda, doing some amazing stuff in this episode. I love how it is really being blurred, the line between CGI and between practical effects with puppetry, because we haven't seen him walk or run like he has in this episode, but it was fantastic.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's convincing. Like it's definitely tricked me a couple times. I'm like, man, is that actually a little like figure?
Yeah.
Or is that like a little puppet? Is that CGI? Like, but God, the way we are at with technology when it comes to filmmaking and all that type of stuff, it's amazing. And just how they portray, just the simple movements of that character. Like I think I heard a quote from Sam Witwer one time during a podcast. He talked about, less is more when it comes to
Hmm.
like puppetry, and like that's expression, and that's it's a lot of expression. And even when Baby Yoda does like move its hand, or like has a little suggestion with his face, like that's a lot of expression that's telling. So it's great to see, like, again, I don't know if that's real robotics or
Yeah.
CGI, but it looks very convincing, and it's a beautiful way they've done that. Again, it's always nice seeing the practical effects of Star Wars. We all love that. But then the CGI too has really come along to where it looks very practical as well.
The whole chase through the atmosphere with the Razor Crest and the
Absolutely,
X-wings,
yeah.
that was something
Which I
straight
mean,
out of a movie.
I feel like this probably was a set that they built. You think? Where they were running on the snow planet or frost planet.
Yeah, could it have been? I mean,
I think it was a set. Like I don't think it was totally CGI with green screen. I mean, I'm sure parts of it were. Like clearly the atmosphere of it had to have been green screen, or at
yeah, it
least they
was,
were they were doing like those LED lights that they do or whatnot. But I felt they were probably on a real set.
yeah, it seemed really authentic, like the
Yeah.
crystals and the colors
Yeah.
and just the snow effects. It was really well done. I mean, for an episode that not a whole lot happened, I mean, I still was entertained throughout the whole
Yeah.
episode.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it was really entertaining from start to finish. And like you both said, the puppeteering and the practical effects are on point. And another thing, like for me, when it comes to like all the effects, like I feel like also sometimes as Star Wars fans, we do get trapped in nostalgia. Like that is definitely something sometimes that happens to us as fans. But I think sometimes we get trapped in the nostalgia of, practical effects are always better. And, sometimes they aren't. CGI, like you were saying, Milton, the CGI has gotten so good, it's like blurred the lines between what's CG or what's practical. I mean, look at some of the stuff from like the sequel trilogy or Rogue One or this show or any of the live action property, any of the live action things we've seen. You know, the CG and the practical effects are so, they're getting so close together. It's getting harder and harder to tell what's practical and what's not. And it's great because it's just better quality, a better viewing experience for us as viewers.
Totally agree.
Yeah, so we're going to wrap things up here. But before we go, we're going to do some final thoughts and we're going to score this thing out of 10 points. We're going to go to Milton first on this one.
So my thoughts before I scored. Overall, it's a solid episode. It wasn't my favorite, but a solid episode. Did I wish things could have gone differently? Absolutely. But like we've mentioned before, this episode is going to have a purpose. We got to see a lot of good things, learn more things about the journey of the Mandalorian. We got to see what's at stake here, learn more of what needs to happen to get to the overall end. As for my score, say 7.5 out of 10.
Fair. That is fair score. Ben, what about you?
I would say the episode was solid overall. Like as Milton said, it was fine. It was a good episode. It had some pretty good moments in it. Like we mentioned before, I like the cinematography in the episode. I like some of the potential plot devices that'll maybe lead into other points throughout the series. And then there's some just down points, like in my opinion, some of the pacing. But overall, I think it was solid. It was good. I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay, so for me, I'll kind of just repeat sort of what I said in the beginning of this episode is that, yeah, I mean, coming off of the premiere, that's the major thing. It was like a complete shift for me where I was like, oh, wow, I was on cloud nine and now I'm just flat out like, that was meh in my opinion. Without explaining any more, just meh. You know, that was fine. Now I gotta wait a week for the next one, which is not the worst feeling. It's like okay, you know,
Yeah.
it's not like I have to wait 3 years for another movie. You know, it's like okay, we just gotta wait for next week, and that's what you got to think about. Is it's an episode, but it's one part of a whole. So like we've been saying this whole time, like this could pay off. There's going to be reasons why this episode exists. Right now, where we might see it kind of narrowly from that perspective, where it's like, okay, I don't see the point of this, but then later on, it factors in. I will say that there were some redeeming things about this episode. For instance, like the parentage that Mando sees firsthand, as Din Djarin with Baby Yoda, how he's seeing, okay, this is actually how I should be acting around this small child. And we see him still messing up with the child in the first episode when he's leaving him on the swoop bike and he walks into the bar. I'm like, what are you doing? So hopefully he keeps him a little bit closer from now on. But other than that, the creature work is great. The ships, the action was great. I think this is still going to be better than most things on TV. I just hold it to a higher standard because this is an Emmy award-winning show now, and it did so well with the first season that I'm going to be a little bit harder on it now just for those facts. So with that being said, I'm going to give it a score of a 6 out of 10. And that is going to do it for, yeah. This is
But
also my...
you know what though? That's what makes it amazing, Chris, is that as Star Wars fans, we can sit here and love everything about it, and we can also be critical of it, and not in a demeaning way, just saying, "Hey, this didn't work for me, and this is why." You know, and it's not tearing down the property. You know,
Exactly.
Like,
you know why we're critical? We're critical because we love this property so
Yes.
much, and we want to see it succeed.
Exactly. So, this might be my least favorite episode of the entire series, but I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, season 3 of I keep messing that up. Episode 3 of season 1 was one of my favorite episodes of the entire series so far. So I have high hopes. I don't know who's directing that episode. I know Deborah Chow is working on Obi-Wan, so she's not involved with this second season, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think we're going to get to some awesome action next week. It looks like he's going to be on the high seas with some Quarrens, and maybe we'll finally meet one of these mysterious characters that is played by Sasha Banks. So for Ben and Milton, you can go ahead and you can follow Ben on Twitter at RealBenMaynard, and you can follow Milton on Twitter at MiltonWeber7. As for me, you can follow me, of course, on Twitter at StarRaptor, and I've also been a guest on Radio Razor Crest, which will be out on Monday morning, I think, at some point, where I was also breaking down this very episode we're talking about now. So if you watch this, you can go ahead and you can listen to that over on the Star Wars Underworld's podcast feed. Definitely check those guys out. I'm a guest on there pretty regularly doing different things, so it's a really great show. They go in depth with a lot of things in the Star Wars world. They talk about news and whatnot, so just definitely give those guys a shot. And of course, we're going to be here again next Sunday at 8 o'clock to wind down your weekend, giving everybody a chance to watch the episode. I probably should have given a spoiler alert in the beginning of this video. I definitely didn't do that, but there wasn't any huge, big revelations. And I assume, because TV can be weighed differently, in my opinion. Like, if you have TV, you can watch these episodes a lot easier than having to drive to a movie theater to watch a movie. So
Absolutely.
by Sunday, if you haven't watched the episode by now and you really care about it, then I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to talk about spoilers. So give you guys a couple days to watch it and whatnot, and it gives me a couple days to watch it more than once, at least, and talk about it a little bit better than like a 5-minute review video that I used to do last year. So anyway, hope to see you guys next week. We are going to be going live again around 8 o'clock Eastern time every Sunday. So with that being said, that's going to do it for me, Ben and Milton. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you always. This is the way.